What's going on, everyone? My name is Dan, and I want to talk about tinnitus or tinnitus, which is persistent ringing in the ears. So I have had tinnitus for a while, and I want to share with you my specific story because, like, I feel if you understand where I was and where I came, where I'm at now, and the journey that I went through, it's going to really help you pull yourself out of this situation and help give you some hope. Because like right now, if you're clicking on this video, you're probably in a place where you're like, oh my gosh, I have this ringing in my ears. The doctors told me there's nothing they can do. I can't turn it off. Like, what do I do? And you might even be at your wit's end. And I'm going to share with you my story and kind of where I was and like how bad it was, because, seeing where I'm at now and looking back throughout that journey, it really helped to remind me that like I can overcome challenging things, and you can too. And that's why I want to make this video, because I want to give people hope, because I truly understand how bad it is. I really get it. And I know a lot of you, if you're telling your friends and family, I have this ringing in my ears, it won't go away. A lot of people don't really understand what that means. Like they'll be like, oh, that's horrible. I don't know how I could live with that. And you're like, well, that doesn't really help me, because you're like, because I have to live with that. So, people telling you stuff like that, they're going to try to help you, but they've really never experienced it. And so what you need is to hear stories, successful stories from people who have been there, been where you're at, and in worse situations, and have pulled through and have managed to build a better life for themselves and go on to be happy again. So for my situation, I have throughout my entire life been exposed to loud noise. I remember my dad, I grew up in the country, and so, we were around dirt bikes, guns, shotguns, chainsaws, loud drills and stuff like that without any hearing protection. And I started playing in a band when I was like 14 years old, and I had a guitar, and, nobody told us to put hearing protection in. That was just not really a thing. Nobody told us that. And so I remember like playing in my band for hours and stuff like that. And my ears would ring, and they would ring for a few days, and then they would just stop ringing. And, we just go about it. And I just thought that's how it was. And so like, I knew it was possible to go deaf, right? But I just thought, oh, that's something that happens later on down the road. And nobody ever told me there's like a loud ringing that could happen in your ears and relatively early on in life. And it could, lead you to a really emotionally bad place. So no one ever really told me that. And I'm telling you that, if you don't have tinnitus, wear hearing protection, obviously. But, even if you are in that emotionally bad place, you still can. There still is hope for you. So basically, I've had many setbacks throughout tinnitus throughout my entire life. The first time it happened to me, right? I was living in New York, and I went to a show, and I wasn't wearing hearing protection. I woke up the next day, the ringing was there, and I kind of freaked out. I was really, really worried about it. But for whatever reason, I just kind of went on with my life, and I had a lot of things going on. And so whatever, I just kind of brushed it off and went on years, really like it never existed. And then the worst reoccurrence that I've ever had, which led to the bulk of my suffering, happened about 2.5 years ago. And it was right as COVID was happening, and we were going into the lockdown, and I was going through a lot of very difficult emotional things. My best friend had cancer. I had a lot on my plate as far as business. I was, taking on a lot of stress with investing and different things like that. And so I was just in a very challenging place. And I remember it was an ear infection, and it was in April when I had an ear infection. It was an otitis media inner ear infection. And I just remember like waking up one day and sitting on the couch, and it just being the sound. I can't explain to you how loud it was. It sounded like just listening to it was giving me hearing damage. It sounded like a dentist drill amplified as loud as it could possibly be. It was just like ripping through my head with all of this force and energy. And I just couldn't take it. I couldn't take it. I was like, there's no way I can live like this. Like, how can you? Like, this is horrifying. It was not just one sound. Like, I had sounds of like crickets, and I didn't know what to do, man. I was a complete wreck. Like, I was like, how does this even happen to me? And it was like that time wasn't because of my fault. I didn't feel like, it was an ear infection. It was like, I didn't do anything to make it happen. So I was like, it was just a complete devastation to me. And it brought me to an extremely low place in my life. And I'll even tell you the story about it. So the sound was maddening. And I remember I woke up in the middle of the night one time and it was just so loud. It was so devastating. It was so horrible that I woke up and I freaked out and I couldn't sleep for like 5-6 days. And I remember going to my general practitioner almost like in tears, being like, dude, I don't know what is going on with me. Like, I can't sleep. I have this horrible ringing in my ears. Like, I'm emotionally like falling apart. I don't know what to do. He took some blood and he was just like ran some tests on me. Basically everything came back fine. And was like, well, I basically don't know what to do for you. So sent me to see what I thought was going to see a psychiatrist. I literally didn't know, but I was going to a mental hospital. And this was right in the middle of the lockdowns, like right smack dab in the middle of the lockdown. So they were expecting people to just kind of, like, people had already been suffering with mental health issues and a lot of different things like that. So they just, I guess, I don't know, thought I was on edge or something. And I remember driving to the mental hospital and to get an evaluation. And I was 5 days no sleep. I wasn't eating. I remember driving thinking to myself, this is the lowest point I've ever been to in my entire life. Lower than when I lost my dad. Because at least when I lost my dad, I could sleep, right? I couldn't sleep. All I heard was an excruciating ringing in my ears. And it was just so horrible. I was like, how can I ever be happy again? How am I ever going to overcome this? Like, I really did think my life was essentially over, right? At least me feeling any sort of happiness, at least me ever be able to move on from this. It was the darkest period I'd ever been to in my life. And I got to the mental hospital and I just thought I was going to see a psychiatrist and they were going to be able to get me on some sleeping pills. Cause I remember telling them, I'm like, they're asking me all these questions. Like, do you want to hurt yourself? Do you want to hurt other people? And I'm like, no, none of that. I just can't sleep. I have a ringing in my ears and I can't sleep. And I'm just trying to fall asleep. And they were trying to get me to stay and, sign all these like $5,000 treatment plans and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, I can't sleep. They're like, well, we're not going to give you any sleeping pills and stuff like that. And they basically came out, they were like, well, you're not crazy enough to stay here. So if you want to stay here, you can. But basically, and then here's the sickest part about this whole experience is they sent somebody in to try to sell me like a used car salesman on this treatment plan. And he's like, basically like, well, if you go home, you're basically going to end up doing something like stupid. So you need to stay here and you need to get all this help. And I was like, dude, I just can't sleep. And I need to be home right now. I don't think staying in a mental hospital is going to help me. Like, I need to heal and I need to rest and I need to try to understand myself and work my way through this. And I feel so bad for people that end up in mental hospitals because they really don't, I don't think, understand what people need when they're in those situations. But anyway, I ended up going home because I'm like, I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to take my chances at home. Ended up going home. And I remember I took like max dose Benadryl that night and I still couldn't sleep after Benadryl. So I'm like thinking like, I'm never going to get to sleep again. I'm always going to have a ringing in my ears. And I'm just like, this is going to be the end of my life. Like somehow I'm just going to die because I don't sleep or something like that. It was just horrible. I can't explain to you how bad it was. Anyway, let me get to the hopeful part. And I'll tell you how I pulled through that. So basically, I remember I got a teledoctor visit and I was able to get on some hydroxyzine and I took a hydroxyzine and that night I was able to sleep and it took like 2.5 hours to kick in. But I remember like it basically put me in like a comatose state where I just like literally lay there and I just couldn't move. And eventually I just passed out. And I remember waking up after sleeping 8 hours, after literally not sleeping at all for going on a week. And I remember I slept and I woke up and I just was like, oh my God, it was just like the best feeling. So I can't explain to you how good it felt to be able to sleep that first 8 hours. And I remember I got up and I was like, okay, at least I can sleep. Like, at least I'm going to be able to pull through this because I can sleep. And I remember like when I woke up, the ringing was still there and it was still really affecting me, but at least I could sleep. And I remember it was a journey. I went on to, try to shift my attention away from the ringing. And, long story short, and I'm going to definitely make more videos explaining like the intricacies of what happened during that time, where I was healing, but it wasn't instant. Like I didn't just like wake up and like instantly was over tinnitus or tinnitus. And I was instantly like cured and back to normal and just doing really well at life. Like it was a process and it took a lot of time. And so like, I just want to tell you, like, if you're in that situation right now where you're in pain and you're in a difficult situation with tinnitus and ringing in the ears, I just want to tell you, like, it's okay to be it's okay to be there. Like it's gonna like that's one thing I would have told myself. Like, it's okay to feel the pain. Like, because you're mourning the loss of your hearing. Like your hearing was a certain way for your whole life and now it's changed. And that can be very, 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 very difficult to accept that. Like your hearing is different now. and your silence is gone. Like, at least for now, right? And I'll talk more about like how I was able to get my silence back, but letting go of all of that and realizing like my life has changed, and I can't keep looking back and blaming myself. You know, I have to accept that like my hearing is different, my silence is gone, and this is how it's going to be. And that was very difficult. And it wasn't like a one day thing. It wasn't like, oh, I just said that to myself and I believed it. It was like I had to work it out and I had to live it out and I had to keep going down these steps of recovery. And so fast forward to today, to the good part. It's as if tinnitus has never even happened. I am completely happy, completely recovered. I'm in a great place. I am pursuing different things in my life. I'm trying to become the best version of myself that I possibly can. Does it mean that I don't have other problems? No, I do have. You're always going to have problems. This is life, and there's always things that are going to go wrong. But I can look back on that period of getting through tinnitus and how devastating it was for me and how low it brought me. And I can think, you know, I really can get through difficult things, and I can allow them to make me a better person. And you know, we can't control what happens to us in life a lot of times. Like, things will happen that we don't want to happen. And, you know, like losing your silence and that, and having that ear infection. But I can control, the one thing I can't control is how I will let it affect me. I can control that. I can choose to let it bring me to a very dark and negative place and just self-pity and wallow and feel sorry for myself. Or I can choose to let it make me better. I can choose to learn from this experience. I can choose to believe and hope that no matter what I'm going through, it's going to bring me to a better place. It's going to bring me to a place that I'm able to feel more compassion, more love. I'm able to feel happier and just more at peace with myself. And, you know, it's going to teach me how to self-love, because, you know, when I was going through it, I really had to learn how to just be there for myself. And just because, I mean, you know, there's a lot of things you can do, and you'll go to the psychiatrist and this and that, and you can go to doctors. But at the end of the day, they're going to send you home, and you are going to be by yourself. You're going to be with yourself, and you have to learn how to love yourself. You have to learn how to talk kindly to yourself and help yourself through this situation. And going through it, those were one of the very transformative experiences that I had with tinnitus. So I'm going to tell you, if you're in tinnitus right now, bothersome tinnitus, and you feel it's hopeless, I want to tell you that it's not. My story is proof that it's not hopeless. And if I can recover from it, anyone can recover from it. So I want you to comment below, because I'm thinking about putting a coaching program together that kind of helps, that helps people take them from where they're at in a bad place to, you know, the paths to recovering. Because I believe that if I can do it, anyone can do it. I know the blueprint. Like, I've lived this stuff out. And I can tell you exactly what you should and shouldn't do to put you on the path to recovery. So just comment below if you're having tinnitus and you're going through a difficult time right now. And if that's something that you might be interested in, just let me know. But I would love to hear your story. Share with me your story in the comment section below. And until then, I will talk to you all later.